Okay, our speaker today is Jim Miller, who is the Regional Director of the DEP. Who said they can't hear me? You need one of those the hard of hearing gadget? Okay, Dave, can you hear now? Oh, okay. All right, Jim oversees the 8 counties in our area, and he is responsible for all the issues that come up as far as the protection of the environment in those counties. I can tell you, I don't know whether he deals with stuff like this, but there's a lot of fracking going on in the area where I live, and it's trucks constantly, tanker trucks. And everybody complains. They don't think about that when they go to Costco and the gas is $5 a gallon, but the trucks are bothering everybody. I'm sure these are issues that he deals with, but I'm going to let him explain that to you. Please welcome Jim Miller.
Thank you, sir.
Hold it close.
Okay. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Thank you for inviting me here. I really appreciate it. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I was born and raised in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, about an hour southeast of here. Big steel town. My pap, my dad, and my brother all worked in the mills, and that's what I was planning on doing until we had the Johnstown flood, and Bethlehem decided they weren't going to stick around anymore. So my dad told me I was going to college, so I went to college. So that's how I ended up here. I've been with the department 32 years. I started in the Philadelphia region, spent 2 years there. I really enjoyed it. It was fast-paced. There was a lot of different things I got to deal with, but it's not easy to live on a civil service salary in the Philadelphia area. Also, it was a little bit of culture shock. I grew up hunting and fishing, and it's not conducive to that in Center City, Philadelphia. So I moved to the Williamsport region, and I spent the bulk of my career up there, 20-some years there. I worked my way up through the waste management program, becoming program manager, and then I promoted to the assistant director's job in the region. That was a very fulfilling job for me. I got involved with the Governor's Action Team, Department of Community and Economic Development. We did big projects. I would coordinate the permits between all the programs. We had 3 different natural gas to electricity facilities come into the region while I was up there. And one of the things I'm most proud of is our air quality program turned around to plan approval in 4 months' time in order to get one of these permitted. So I was talking to a gentleman earlier here today, and he's from the area up there, but it really did amazing things. The gas exploration and development up there did a lot of wonderful things for the town up there. So that was nice to see. After I spent 6 years in that position, I moved to the Meadville office in the northwest portion of the state and became the director. And I was the director up there for 5 years. And then in January of 2021, I moved down here to Pittsburgh. I have children in the area, so I got closer to them. So, but I really enjoy this area. I enjoy that I get to be involved with things in the Cambria County area where I grew up, and hopefully I can make a difference there. I give you a little bit about my philosophy. I believe we can have economic development and environmental protection at the same time. I'm not one of those persons that just say we can't do anything. I don't want the department to be the agency of no. That's not what we're here for. We're here to allow development and do it responsibly. And so that's what I push for. I like to see jobs coming into the area. I'd like to see economic development in the areas. And I think we can do it the right way and still have that, have prosperity for people and still protect the environment. So I try to use a common sense approach to things. I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree, so I just, I try to do things common sense wise. And that's how I do things. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of the structure of the region and how we're set up and what we do. Okay, thank you. This is the different regions we have in the state. The southeast region is the Philadelphia region. Northeast is Wilkes-Barre and Scranton. South central is the Harrisburg. North central Williamsport. Northwest Meadville, and then Pittsburgh. We have 8 counties in the Pittsburgh region. We have 494 local governments and approximately 2.3 million residents, but that was based on a 2017 census number. And we also have 600 and some thousand residents living in an environmental justice area. And what that is if you have 30% minority population or 20% people below the poverty line, that's how our environmental justice area is defined. This shows our programs that we have and also our offices. I need to update this slide because we recently closed the Beaver Falls office, and so we don't have staff there any longer. When the pandemic came along, the department started teleworking, and we had staff in the Beaver Falls office was mostly field staff, which their job is to go out and do inspections every day. So it didn't make a lot of sense to be spending your tax dollars on a building that wasn't occupied. These people work from home now and go out and do the same amount of inspections, but we're not paying for a building any longer up there in Beaver Falls. Okay, so here's what's going on in the Southwest region. We have field operations, and I'm in charge of the field operations staff. We have air quality program. They oversee the emissions coming from plants. We have certain limitations that's set by the federal government, and we have primacy to enforce those standards in the state. So we use the federal regulations to regulate folks in air quality. Clean water, same thing. We have federal standards that we have. We also have state standards, but we regulate any discharges from industrial plants. That would be your manufacturers. We also regulate discharges to the streams from sewage treatment plants. So any discharge you're going to have, you're going to need a permit from the department in order to discharge to the waters of the Commonwealth. Environmental cleanup in brownfields. This is one of my favorites. They clean up abandoned industrial properties. They have cleanup standards we set. We have Act 2. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but what Act 2 did was made it possible to take these abandoned facilities and repurpose them and sets cleanup standards so that they could be put back on the tax roll and put back in use, so that companies aren't going out and developing green fields, which could be used for homes or other things. It's a pretty good program. What you do, if you meet the standards, and there's two sets. There's one standard that's set, it's a statewide health standard. If you meet that, you get a relief of liability. And what that says is the new person coming in and taking over the property, as long as they don't have any pollution incidents, they're not held liable for any of the pollution that occurred prior to them taking ownership of that property. That helps with financing, because banks were leery to get involved with these type of sites prior to this legislation, because they were worried about being on the hook for the pollution as well. Federal government, the RCRA rules are very strict. There's strict liability, and it applies to the people that created it, and anybody involved with it, and anybody operating it. And so it throws a wide net out there. And so financial institutions were not really excited to get involved with these types of projects. So that was Governor Ridge that got that done, and it's a very successful program. We also have radiation protection. What these folks do is you need a license for any radioactive source. So when you get your teeth x-rayed at the dentist, when you get any kind of x-ray at the hospital, those things are all licensed. We go out and do inspections there. In addition, the oil and gas industry has radioactive sources they use to determine if the pipes were welded properly, if it's, the seam is together so that they don't have any leaks with the gas. They use radioactive sources there. We license those as well. And so we go out and inspect those facilities. They also are responsible for our nuclear fuel or electricity plants. Those are the big ones. We do drills twice a year so that we'll be ready to respond to something like happened at 3 Mile Island back in the 70s. Safe drinking water is just what it says. This program oversees the public drinking water supplies that give you your water. The one thing we don't regulate, if you have a private well on your property and that's how you get your water, we do not regulate private water sources. These are only public water sources that we regulate. But we have a set of standards we use that they have to meet when they're sending the water out through the system, so that we know that it's safe and it's not going to harm anyone. Waste management, this is the program I came up through. What we do in that program is, just like it says, any waste that's generated in the state, we're responsible for how it's managed. Household waste, we don't come to the homeowner, but the facilities that pick up your waste and process your waste and dispose of your waste, we regulate those facilities so that they're doing it properly. A landfill, it's not just a big hole in the ground, it's pretty sophisticated. There's a liner system, a primary liner, a secondary liner. There's leachate collection involved with it. Leachate is the juice that comes out of the garbage once the rainwater perks through it. And we make sure that's collected properly and that that's treated properly before it's disposed. We also have a series of wells, groundwater wells around all these facilities, up gradient, down gradient, so that we can determine if there's any leakage from the landfill getting into the groundwater. We have a leachate detection system in these landfills. There's the primary and then the secondary layer. The leachate detection system is in between those two things, and if leachate gets in there, it's detected before it gets through the next liner, and we know we have a problem with the secondary liner. So it's pretty sophisticated, and it does help protect the environment. Waterways and wetlands. This is probably the most controversial program that we're dealing with. They handle the erosion and sedimentation control permits, and that's if you're going to turn dirt to do any project. If you're going to disturb more than an acre, you're going to need a permit from either us or the County Conservation District to do that. And the reason these are controversial is everybody's in a hurry to get their project done. And sometimes we won't, we're the last thing people are thinking about, that the developer's thinking about. And so we get a permit in the door at the 12th hour, and they want it turned around yesterday. And it just simply can't be done that quickly. And so that's where things get contentious then. So a little later on in the slideshow, I'll tell you what we're doing to address that. Oil and gas management. This is the exploration and drilling of natural gas in the Commonwealth. I'm not responsible for this, so I can't help you out with the trucks and things. They are located in our region, but a different director handles that program. And then the active and abandoned mine operations. I don't oversee this as either. This is handled by our district offices. There's regional managers that handle the active and abandoned mine lands. So, but what they do is one, they oversee the coal being taken out of the ground. There's federal regulations, MSHA, as well as state regulations on how that should be done to protect the workers and the environment. And then we have the active and abandoned mine, the abandoned mine reclamation program. And what they do is they're responsible for putting in treatment plants and other controls that clean up the acid mine drainage and bring streams back to life. And they've done a really good job of it. They also handle mine subsidence issues. There was a lot of underground mining in the area back in the day, and if you live on an area that was undermined, I think it's $200, you can get subsidence insurance from the state. Some of the things we deal with for permitting are dam inspections. We don't permit the dams in the region. That's done in Harrisburg, but we do go out and inspect the dams. We have a list of dams we have to do every year, the high hazard dams. These are dams that are going to cause property loss or loss of human life. And so we make sure we get out and inspect those each year to make sure that they're not going to fail. We have commercial dredging. That's in the Allegheny and the Ohio rivers. We have dredging for gravel and sand out of those rivers. MS4s are, this is your stormwater program in each of the municipalities. It's a big issue in here in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of localized flooding. It seems like our storms are getting flashier. We get more water in a shorter time frame every time we're having a rain. Used to be 100-year floods were every 100 years. Well, now it's not. They're coming, a lot more frequently than they used to come. And so it's causing a headache. So, we're trying to work with the municipalities to think about planning, how they're, approving home developments, industrial developments, make sure the water, the runoff from those developments is controlled so it's not flooding people downstream or in other communities. Title V facilities are air emission facilities. So that would be your electric generation plants, coal-fired, natural gas-fired plants, other factories that use solvents, other volatile organic compounds that would go up into the air. Those are controlled through that. The Shell petrochemical plant, that's regulated by a number of our programs: waste management, air quality, clean water, waterways and wetlands. It's a huge plant. I had the privilege of touring it. It's going to be an amazing thing. They're going through shakedown right now, heating up the boilers, getting ready to start the cracking process. So hopefully there's some more economic development based on the products they're creating there. We have some other industries move in that will be using their product as a raw material. I'd like to see that. So. As I said, regional flooding events. When we have that happen, our Waterways and Wetlands program, they're responsible for doing any work in a stream We'll give out emergency permits to people. We turn those around in less than a day. We'll get them out to folks so that they can go and get things out of the stream, get things repaired so that they can mitigate the flooding. Litigation, bankruptcies, and EHB appeals. We have I think it's 15 attorneys at our office. When we issue enforcement actions like orders or penalties, a lot of times those are appealed, and so our attorneys work on those. Bankruptcies are very challenging. Right now we're dealing with a situation, a developer developed a tract of land in Washington County, and the way it was done on the hillside with the cut and fill, they didn't do it properly. There were 4 homes that slid down the hillside. We have a couple more that are in danger of failing right now. The sewage lateral, the main line, the sewage main, because of the slope pushing down, it recently burst, and so we have the sewage from 250 homes being discharged into a stream there. The developer claimed bankruptcy, and so even though we have an order against him to do things to repair that, because he's claimed bankruptcy, we can't get him to do anything. So, you know, that's challenging right there. You don't want to see 250 people put out of their homes because they have their sewage spilling out into a stream. That's the one that it's a tough one to figure out. So this is some of the things we're doing. We get criticized a lot, and sometimes it's fair that we don't get permits out the door quickly. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is make the department more efficient in the Southwest. My counterparts are doing the same thing in their regions. But we're not rubber stamping permits, but we're trying to get them out the door in a much more shorter time frame. The regional director that was here before me developed the PAC tool, and what that is the permit application consultation tool. It's an online tool that an applicant can go online, answer a series of questions, and based on the answers to those questions, it'll tell them what permits they're going to need, who they should contact, and how to set up a meeting with us to discuss it. I'm a big believer in this. If you come in, and we're always willing to meet with anybody. You're not bugging us. That's what we get paid for. You know, you pay our salaries, and we're here to serve you. So you want to call us, you want to meet with us, we'll do that. But it really helps if you get in with us early, and then we can help you avoid problems. Wetlands are a big thing. You know, you can't go into the wetland. If you do, there's going to be all kind of permitting. So we often will help an applicant lay out their facility so they're avoiding the wetlands, or we can tell them how to mitigate the wetlands in order to get their facility built. One of the things we need to do, we developed a list of common deficiencies. And so we saw a lot of permits that came in had the same type of deficiencies. So when we meet with individuals, we'll give them that list and say, here's some of the things we always see coming in on this type of permit that are a problem. And so these are the things you want to concentrate on so that you don't make the same mistake that other people have made. Because if we can keep it, you know, get a quality application in the door, we can get it turned around and out the door in a quicker time frame. And that's what we want. We don't want to be, you know, tied up with back and forth with the applicant. We want a good product coming in and a good product going out. There again, just what I was saying, communicate with us early and often. We want to hear from you. We want to know, you know, what you have in mind. I want to hear your feedback too. If we're not doing something right, I want to know about it so that we can make changes so that we can be a better agency. Another thing we're doing to become more efficient is the on-base system. What it does is allow you to submit documents to the department electronically. And so once it's uploaded through this system, we can share it all over the department to the people that need to see it. It also cuts down on the amount of paper we're touching, and so that makes us more efficient. it saves space in our building because now we're saving everything electronically instead of paper. We have a big surge on right now. We're converting all of our paper documents to electronic documents, and so we're saving them on the cloud instead of saving them in our office. So it's going to cut down on the amount of space we need in our office to do this. So e-permitting is another tool we've come up with under this administration, and it allows you to do all your permitting online with the department. You submit your application through the e-permitting system, and it's handled that way. And I think it's more efficient, and it helps us review it in a more timely manner. Permitting efficiency tool. This is a tool that I and the regional director in the North Central region came up with. It's a software tool that we developed, and what it does is allow us to look at the efficiencies of our engineering staff to determine how quickly they're getting permits out the door. We can look at a region, we can look at statewide, or we can dial it down to an individual engineer and type of permit to determine how long it takes them to get that permit out the door. And we can look at trends, we can determine workloads. So right now, we're using this tool. We have a statewide work sharing program going on. Southwest had a huge backlog. My predecessor, really cut into it, but to take it a step further now, we're sharing work from the Southwest region to 4 other regions in the state that don't have as many applications as the Southwest has. Our overtime hours last year to address this came out to 19 full-time equivalent positions. So that's how much overtime we're working to try to reduce the backlog. Our air quality program in June of this year, they'll have no more backlog. So that's an amazing thing for us. So they're addressing every permit as it comes in the door instead of trying to play catch up with permits that are already in-house.
Jim,
Yeah.
is it your department that brings the suits against the Clairton Coke Works?
No, not for air pollution. In Allegheny County, the Allegheny County Health Department enforces the air pollution regulations. So in Philadelphia the same way, and in Erie, Erie handles water quality with their health department. So we delegate, that authority is delegated to them to do that. We're doing a lot of things since we're teleworking. We have secure VPN access so that while we're doing our work online, we don't have to worry about being hacked. We have ways to share huge files back and forth between applicants and the departments. And in some cases, I've seen where we've actually become more efficient since we began teleworking than before. When I was in the Northwest region, our Waterways and Wetlands program, it was good. They were third in the state in efficiency. But when we started teleworking, that went up to second. And I think that is, they were a very social bunch of people. And I think, because they're at home concentrating on permits, there's less collegiality between them. There's less talking, and so the permits going out the door went up. So I was glad to see that. So it addressed that. One drawback is if you have a young engineer, he doesn't have those people around him to bounce ideas off of and ask questions. So there is some drawbacks to teleworking. So. DEP processes 40,000 permits a year approximately, so that's a huge workload. We do have the conservation districts that help us out, but that's a large amount of work, and we have to make sure we do it right, or otherwise we have problems, and the environment and humans suffer, and we don't want that to happen. So. I'm going to give a plug. Earlier I mentioned environmental justice. We are currently changing the environmental justice policy. It was published in the Pennsylvania Bulletin, and it's available for you to view online. Excuse me. But if you'd like to read that, what it does is basically we had permits that were covered by this policy. And so if a landfill wanted to locate in a certain area, if it was in an environmental justice area, that was considered a trigger permit, and there'd be enhanced public participation because of that. What this will do is expand the number of trigger permits. It'll include the oil and gas program, which currently isn't considered in this, and it gives a bigger voice to the environmental justice communities. In the north central portion of the state, we didn't have large minority populations, but we had a lot of populations that were under the poverty level, and so they would fall into the environmental justice areas for that reason. So if you're interested in any environmental justice, please feel free to go online. If you go to our website, it's dep.gov, correct, or pa.gov, and you can search on environmental justice, and it'll bring this up for you. So this is just a list of all our web resources that are available to you. And that's an overview. So I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
I have two questions. What is your relationship with the Corps of Engineers?
Wait for the microphone.
Oh, okay. With your wetlands, what is your relationship with the Corps of Engineers? Because some developers seem to have to get permits from you and the Corps of Engineers. The other question I have is, here in the Quaker Valley School District, they're going to build a new school on a possibly slide-prone area, and you were mentioning Washington County. Will the school board have to get a permit for you to build the school?
Okay, in regard to the Army Corps, yes. We do work with the Army Corps. It's called a joint permit, and that's when it's a Chapter 105 permit, that's waterways permit. And they have to get a permit from us, and they have to get a permit from the Army Corps. That can slow things down. I have no control over the Army Corps, and disturb more than an acre of land.
Yeah, they are. They're going to move much dirt and possibly disturb existing water and sewer lines.
Yeah, then they'll need a permit from us. Depending on the type of permit it is, if it's a general permit, the County Conservation District will probably handle it, but if it's an individual permit, then the department would handle the review of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Significant issue here in Swickley on Big Swickley Creek about the threat about the fracking companies taking water out. I'm a fisherman, and I would hate to see that happen because in the summertime there isn't going to be much water left in the creek there.
Yeah, and I've talked to Representative Matsey about this. He's opposed to that. He has contacted the secretary in regard to that. He wrote a letter in July, and he wrote another letter recently about it. He doesn't want to see that. That's our oil and gas program. They have standards, pass-by standards. What it's called is, so if you're proposing to stick a straw in the stream and draw out so many million gallons a day, if you do that, what's going to be the pass-by of the water left to protect the species downstream of that? So that's what's considered, how it's going to hurt the environment. And so the oil and gas program is reviewing that permit at this time. And that's on the website as well. So.
You were talking about development and your office working hand in hand. I know here in this area, in the Marcellus Shale area, we're sitting on like 500 years worth of gas, a huge amount. And in the early days of fracking, we heard stories of water wells on private land being contaminated, et cetera, et cetera. Is the technology leaps and bounds better nowadays than when fracking first started?
I don't know if it's leaps and bounds, but it is better. They learned lessons. A lot of times, you'd have two pipes going down into the ground, and there'd be a concrete collar that would kind of cap it off at the top. And if the concrete collar wasn't correct, then that's when we were seeing gas migration leave the drilling and work through its crevices in the ground or the groundwater to go over and then go into somebody's well.
Yeah.
So it is getting better. They also have to do pre-drill surveys, and I think it's 1,500 feet. I can't remember off the top of my head because I don't work in that program, but there's a defined area that if you're within so many feet of a well, the gas company is required to go out and offer sampling to all the individuals within that area. Now, the resident doesn't have to take the gas company up on it. They should, because it's free to the resident. The gas company has to pay for it. But if you get a pre-drill sampling of your well, then you have a baseline to know and show whether it gets impacted by the drilling or not. And with that, then, when somebody says they were impacted, we look at that pre-drill survey to determine if it was impacted by the gas company. And if we determine it was, the gas company has to provide them with equal quality and quantity of water that what they had prior to the drilling.
The trucks that we were talking about, what are they carrying? Fracking water or something like? And
Yeah.
then what do they do with it?
There's a number of things you can do with it. We have some underground injection wells in Pennsylvania that they can just inject it deep into the earth. A lot of them, what they do is recycle it. We have plants in Pennsylvania that they can clean it up to different qualities. Some clean it up just well enough to take it and use it in another well. And gas companies prefer to do that because drawing fresh water and paying for fresh water costs you money. It's gotten to the point where it's cheaper to recycle it than to draw fresh water. We have other places that treat it to such a clean extent that you can discharge it to a stream. There's a plant in Williamsport. They actually distill it, and it comes out very clean and meets standards to put right back into a stream. So all the pollutants are taken out and they end up in a sludge that's then landfilled.
What's to prevent people from hacking into your system and changing everything?
Well, we have firewalls and we do have security. We have an IT department, but we follow the security advice from the federal government. So, but we're at, if Russia wants to hack us, I'm sure they could hack us. So, we're just like everybody else. We're at under the same threat as everybody else.
My question is concerning the Act 2. There's in my town, we had a plant that closed down. It was in business for over 100 years. Now, they dismantled it, so it's one big open field. Now, if a corporation comes in, will your agency check what kind of cleanup has to be before he purchases it? How does that protocol work?
No, the Act 2 program is a voluntary program. And so if a company doesn't want to go through that program, they don't have to. If they don't go through it and they expose pollution or create more pollution, they're responsible for that pollution. They're also, if they get on site and now the pollution extends off their property, say it goes into the groundwater and goes off site, even though they didn't create that pollution because they own it, they're liable for it. So they don't have to get into the Act 2 program, but it's wise to do so because then they get a relief of liability for that. Now, once they enter the program, then our department does oversee the testing. They have to submit a notice of intent to remediate. That starts the process. And then once they do that, then they submit a plan of how they're going to do a phase 1 site assessment, and that includes looking at file reviews, looking at known history of the plant, what chemicals were used. Then after that is a phase 2 site assessment, which actually is the sampling of the soils and the groundwaters. And then based on that data, we can determine what action has to be taken to meet standards. You can have the statewide standard, which is set limits, or you can do a site-specific health standard. And that's based on the activity that's going to take place at the site. So if you're going to have an industry there, you don't have to clean it up as clean as if you were going to put a housing development there. If you're going to put something where residents could be exposed, that's our residential statewide health standard. That's a lot cleaner than if you're going to just put an industry there and go site-specific health standard.
Now, they can do this all before they purchase the property?
What usually sometimes happens, and we do buyer-seller agreements. It's a legal agreement that an economic development corporation, the county or the municipality have these economic development corporations. They will take over the property, they'll clean it up, and then they'll turn around and sell it to the developer. And so the economic development corporation handles all the cleanup, and they do that prior to selling it to the
Who pays for it?
well, there are funds available, there are grants available, but the Economic Development Corporation can also put money into that.
Now, my second question is, down on 65 where Dixmont was, we had a landslide years ago. Walmart was supposed to go up there. Does your agency still monitor that hillside?
I don't know, I'd have to check on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hand me my folder? Can I just get back to you with the answer?
Yes.
Question about recycling. I know some years ago, we knew that a lot more newspapers were being collected than could be sold, and it was just ending up in the landfill, and I assume that's still the case. The normal recycling, do you monitor how much is actually being recycled of the plastics and aluminum versus ending up being incinerated or going into landfills?
Yeah, we do. Act 101 is the law that established the recycling in Pennsylvania. And under that, it's based on your municipality's size, whether you're regulated by that. But if you go over the threshold for the amount of people in your municipality, you're subject to that law, and it makes you, it's mandated recycling. And so then they have to do, those municipalities have to report back to us each year how much and what type of materials were recycled, where it went. So that's how we determine those numbers, but we do track those. We've had, a lot more was getting recycled in the past. China was buying up everything. And even if it was, you know, in mixed plastics, mixed cardboards and papers, it would get shipped there and they would do the manual labor to separate everything. They're not doing that now. There was a huge glut of recyclables on what, you know, America had been recycling, just was shut off because China changed the policy. And now you have to send over source separated and very clean and specific types of papers and grades of cardboard now for China to accept it. And they were the biggest market taking our recyclables. And that kind of threw a wrench in things. Glass, you can hardly give away anymore. It's hard to recycle glass right now.
Well, what's the municipality do if there is no market for the stuff they collected?
They only have to, the law only tells them they have to do mandated to do 3 recyclables. So cardboard historically always had a good value, so that's an easy one. Office paper is an easy one. There's still market for that. Aluminum or tin cans is a great one. So those 3 things, so since you only have to do 3, usually a municipality can figure out which 3 they have a market for. And we have a recycling coordinator at the department, would be more than willing to meet with any municipality. They know the markets right now. They know who the players are, who to put you in contact with. A lot of these solid waste authorities or waste companies that pick up your recyclables, they deal with 4 or 5 different marketing people, and they'll go where the best price is. A lot of times, too, people will hold on to the cardboard. They'll bale it and keep it dry in a warehouse until prices go up, and then get rid of it. So it's market-driven like other things.
I have an image in my head about an area in the Pacific that's the size of Texas that's loaded with plastics. And I know that stuff comes from all over the world. Probably India and China might be the prime culprits. But is there anything we can do in the long term about gathering all that stuff up and making the oceans clean again? And the second part of my question is, what can we do to replace plastics? Can we do some kind of a paper product that could be biodegradable and will help things? So I know that goes beyond your purview, but it's a problem that the world has, and with the input that you have and your agency has, maybe something can be done about it.
Yeah, somebody built, I was reading an article on it, they built a contraption that would go out and clean up the plastics in the Pacific. And I'd have to search on the internet, but I know somebody's addressing that. You know, they did do that. And they have this machine that's harvesting the plastics right now. In regard to what we can do locally, Erie is putting a plastic bag ban in place. Pittsburgh just announced they're going to do it. And so what you can do there is go back to paper, or if you carry your own bags, like at Aldi's, my wife and I take our own bags to Aldi's because they don't give out, you have to pay for bags there. So that's another thing, use reusable bags for that. I don't know, how you're going to get away. Plastic's so cheap and easy to use now, but I mean, we used to not have it. When I was a kid, we got milk on our porch. The milkman would come around and put bottles on our porch, and that's how we got our milk. We didn't have plastic jugs then. I mean, we could go back to the glass again. But yeah, like you said, we don't deal with that locally, but those are some ideas that we could do.
I came to this part of the state 50-some years ago. I'll never forget the first time I drove Route 837 up the Mon on the Clairton side, looking across at the hillside, Liberty Borough and Portview. It was desolate. Now, Clairton Coke Works is still going strong. I would not want to live in that area. Is anything being done? Now, it's been 50-some years that they've spewed what they're spewing out of those works. Do you have any authority over that?
No, that's the Allegheny County Health Department handles that. Yeah, we do, not Clairton we don't regulate, but other facilities like that, other steel mills, we do regulate. So.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. Great presentation. We appreciate you taking your time to come down and see us.